Welcome to Dear Grandchildren, A Tracker's Tale. I'm Michael Douglas, your guide on this journey into the heart of nature and the wisdom that it holds. Here, we blend the ancient skills of survival, tracking, and foraging with modern insights to help you reconnect to the wild within. In each episode, we'll explore timeless practices, share life-changing stories, and discover how the natural world can bring you mindfulness, resilience, and purpose. But this podcast is more than just a show. It's a community. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast, where you'll find exclusive content, question and answer sessions, bonus tales. For those seeking a deeper connection, explore our workshops and experiences, or even bring me to your community for an unforgettable adventure. Now, let's step off the trail and into a possible nature experience that could change how you see the world. Let's begin. Welcome back, folks. When last we talked, it was about grabbing your toolkit and let's get started. So you got your toolkit, you're heading out into the world. Which way do we go, right? A map is needed. So I want to share with you how it was shared with me first. And then through the years, I've had the opportunity to track the science of how the brain works into being able to read where thoughts are actively traveling through a living human with the technology that we have. And the joy of watching our modern paradigm catch up to the wisdom of the elders has been fantastic. Perhaps I shouldn't be drinking coffee on this show. I apologize. Tom Brown Jr. was a fellow piney who was way ahead of me in years and in woods experience and in skills I don't know that my brain could contain all that he'd forgotten in his life, let alone knew. And he was mentored by a Lipan Apache elder, Stalking Wolf, who I don't know I have the capacity to imagine where his skill sets ended or began. All I know is that I've lived out in the woods for 2.5 years while I was in college in a debris hut on a 6-year college program, because I could. It was an option that I didn't think was a big deal because of the way that I experienced the woods as a child, thanks to Tom Brown and folks who were influenced by him in scouting. We were out playing in the woods as far as I was concerned until I got into the Marine Corps to learn real survival, which has a different take on it than going home. It's more like, here's what you need to know to get rescued. And while it served the purpose and I found some of the skills useful, it didn't go deep enough. I wanted to go into the woods for longer and longer periods of time and more capabilities, edible plants, tracking and counter-tracking, the good stuff, building shelters out of materials and being invisible. I think a lot of us joined the service to be outdoors more and to hone our craft even more deeply than we did when we were children. But around year 2 or 3, it dawned on me, even in the infantry battalion, that I am not going to learn as much in the Marine Corps as I did in Boy Scouts. And I thought everybody had the same scouting experience. It was confusing until I found a book called The Tracker in Guam at the USO, and it dawned on me that this guy, this cool adult who when showed up at any of the scout functions, we knew we were going to have a blast. It was an anomaly. It was a special thing. I saved all my leave time. I saved all of my money, and I spent the rest of my terminal leave at the Boy Scout camp that I went to as a kid in Forked River, New Jersey, and at the tracker school. And I took every physical class I could because the vision that I had carried with me was when Tom puts down that intense anger, I can learn the spiritual stuff. See, Tom was a Wolverine. He loved being in New Jersey, completely outnumbered and totally surrounded. In his mind, he got him right where he wants him. And I picked that up. I picked up the Wolverine. It was a very romantic and sexy thing when you're a young 20-something warrior. But after a while, in my 30s and 40s, it started to dawn on me I couldn't cash those checks that my ass wanted to write. And so I had to put that down. In short, I was blessed with the ability to make shelters and fires and harvest water and gather food in a manner that considered the balance of all things, not just my physical needs, but the needs of the landscape. And for some reason, and I know now scientifically why, I was able to find elders at the right time to help me with the tools that I needed to move forward with the development of this stuff, this ancient wisdom, primitive skills. You know who told me to use primitive skills? Tom. I was in my college age and worried about offending people. And I was like, Aboriginal skills, ancestral skills. And Tom comes up in his typical bluntness. Just call it primitive skills. That's what it is. He had no attachment to the word meaning less than. He had every attachment to the word meaning honor the sacred wisdom of the elders who lived hard lives to bring you this. That you're here is because of their skill and their love. These things are important. These aren't stupid. These aren't less than. These are first skills. Primitive skills are first skills. So, this roadmap is from that lineage. The four worlds of humanity. Tom learned from Stalking Wolf, who wandered the wilderness, who walked from South America to the tip of North America, and then east to the strange land of New Jersey, where he met Tom in his later years, the last part of his life. But in that entire time, he was looking for the common threads of humanity. What do we all share? What do we all need together as a people, not to divide, but to unify and to reclaim health? Sometimes we forget what's important. And so part of that journey gave this insight of the four worlds of humanity. The first world is considered the world of the living dead. Now I'm going to compare that to the neuro research, who also has a 4+1 model of humanity. And yes, the Apache had the +1 as well. So I'm going to go through the traditional side and then the modern interpretive side, complete with the amount of brain waves per second measured in hertz and the behaviors indicative of that state. So, what correlates with the world of the living dead? In neuro research, and this is according to the government site from the National Institute of Health, the common brainwave frequency associated with the beta state, which is between 15 and 32 hertz, or brainwaves per second, has the following experience or symptoms of behavior, right? So at mid beta, 15 to 20 hertz per second, you're thinking. You have words in your head. There are thoughts about things. You're focusing. Maybe you're focusing on the content of that commercial about winning the lottery, or maybe you're focusing on the menu at the restaurant, or what you're going to be expecting while you're in the car driving when you step through the door at home. That's a focus that robs you of your present. It's important. It's important to have focus, but in context, right tool for the right job at the right time. Focus isn't necessary all the time. In fact, it gets in the way of absorbing information that will hone your focus when you need it. Sustained attention, but on a point. So if you're a hiker, your sustained attention might be on campsite B or the position of the sun or the trail markers. It also comes with a degree of tension. The I've got to get there in times, or the get out of my way, or oh, please stop talking. I just want to do something else. And there's an alertness, which is not awareness, alertness to a specific contextual theme. If you're a police officer and you walk into a restaurant, you have a different alertness to a contextual theme than the waitress who's coming in 10 minutes early for her shift and is reading the crowd to see how busy it's. And then there's excitement. Now, excitement can be good or bad. A dog wags its tail because it's excited, not because it's happy to see you. Not always. Excitement can also say, you get close, I'm going to bite your face off. That's also excitement. So you have to look beyond the wagging tail and a little deeper to decipher where that dog is feeling. Is it feeling excited to see you because I love you, or is it getting excited to see you because you're going to get your face bit? Direct eye contact cues, steady head position, all of those things matter. The way it walks, is it pacing or alternate walking, or is it not walking at all, but its body language is saying, I am not backing down? Versus, I can't wait to see you. My butt is wagging so hard, it's moving my whole body. Playful pause where they kind of go back and forth, almost exaggerated. And the head wag. The head wag is excitement. I'm happy, 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 not head still, eyes directly into your eyes. Matching your gaze, leaning forward in. That's a little different. Same wagging tail. Now, once we transcend high beta, we get into that +1. I want to save that one to the end because that's important. And all you ADHD people out there, you're going to feel proud. But I'm going to give you some tools to consider with that as well. I'm an ADHD people, by the way. I love my gift. Anyway, let's go in the other direction. We're going to relax our state. We're going to slow our brain waves, and we're going to do it deliberately. We're going to choose to slow our internal pace. Now, you might call this meditative practice, but only if you take meditation off the pedestal as the end-all be-all and see it for what it is, which is an effective vehicle to access these four worlds of humanity. This is the map, and the ability to slow or speed your internal pace is the vehicle to get to where you want to be on the map for the greatest outcomes based on the situation that you choose to be in. You see the difference between being on a life raft with no paddles and turning it into a kayak with a paddle and maybe even a rudder that's pedal steered like the sea kayaks. Anyway, as you relax, almost as if you're falling to sleep, beta is going to slow. And when it gets to about 13 to 15 brainwaves per second, or hertz, you maintain your mental alertness, but you also experience physical relaxation. This is where professional athletes, they'll explain this as getting in the zone, right? Something that you do unconsciously competent, where you don't need a lot of thought and it just comes naturally. I've seen this in martial arts competitions. I used to love to watch kata because the people in the zone, they were fighting invisible people, and their emotions, body language cues, eye contact with the people you couldn't see, that they were sweeping or redirecting and counterattacking. And it was a beautiful thing to watch. Combat ballet. But those who weren't engaged almost looked disinterested, almost looked floppy and disconnected. And it says a lot about how people embrace their life, but it's also a tool to embrace your life or not. There are going to be times where you have to love enough to know when to walk away. So in science, this would be called the sensorimotor rhythm, but it's actually a veil between that physical lizard brain, right? That little piece that is the I, ego, physical self, and what we would term the subconscious, which is kind of a doorway into that other space that we're getting into, the alpha state. The alpha state, known as the spirit that moves through all things, in the lineage that was passed to me from Stalking Wolf to Tom Brown to countless folks who've been called to be keepers and preservers of these skills to pass them on. And that's the thing. It's not supposed to be a belief system. It's supposed to be a bag of tools. And the difference is belief systems have dogma and weird expectations of, and there's like these little kind of tingy things that get in the way of you becoming the fullness of your being. Well, I found that these tools fit in all of the belief systems that I've either studied or been a part of. And it's almost like validation of those older vehicles that maybe have got a little dust on them from hundreds or thousands of years of expression and dogmatic practice and disinterested participants. And you get the idea. So, or zealotry. In the alpha state, you're at your optimum cognitive performance. This is upper alpha. This is the first thing that comes online, is your cognitive performance starts to peak. Have you ever felt creative and started singing and nailing it? Or writing and the drawing? You never draw this good. This is great, but you're flowing with it. Or maybe you start making up rhymes or have a joke and the timing is perfect. In the alpha state, because you're slowing down, you're becoming more aware. So in the upper alpha, it is said scientifically, it is recognized that we optimize our cognitive performance at 10 to 13 hertz. And then as we slow it down even more, 8 to 10, we begin to recall things, deep memories, childhood memories, suppressed memories. And then when we get into the range of alpha proper, where we can kind of drift back and forth in that 8 to 13 hertz cycle, we start to enjoy a space. We occupy a space of highest alertness without trying. It's an effortless alertness. That's why prime time is at the end of the day when you finally relax and collapse on the couch, and then suddenly the blanket that's there for this reason is needed because you are alert or made aware of the draft you didn't notice when you first came in. Likewise, others will come in from the rush of the day and they may not even know you're there. You saw and heard them coming before they got out of the car. They weren't aware of your presence until they accidentally, faced that direction or are conditioned to look where you always sit. In alpha, you're also peaceful, but ready. You're in a meditation and deeply relaxed, but completely aware of the energy moving through the systems all around you, from the cat and how it reacts to the other people coming up the stairs, to the draft coming through the seam in the old window, to the baseboard heat clicking, meaning it's either going on or cooling in comparison to the sound of the furnace in the basement. That's your environment. That's your home. And we're trying to cultivate wilderness as home so that you have your senses on, even in the chaos of the world. And to do that, you have to be in the alpha state. The beta state is great for point A to point B, laser focus. But you're a speedboat in a marsh. You're going to get through the marsh, but everybody's going to get out of your way and make themselves invisible to you, which denies you more choices, options, opportunities, connectivity, orientation, perspective, relationships, those things. But you get to point B, those with the most toys win. What? Because it's obvious what we lose, and it doesn't come back. If you're too busy making a living to be there for your children, you don't get that time back. Trust me. Even if you're living your vision, you can be selfish with it. Don't be a speedboat all the time. There's good times to be speedboat. Love your speedboatiness. Don't end up hating it, because that gets in the way too. Just park it in a well-protected space so that it's ready when you need it. And then explore all of the other options. You're going to get different results when you try different options. And you have the choice of when and where and how. Remember the right tool for the right job at the right time. And that's a great guideline. Use the right tool for the right job at the right time. And if you could see 2 or 3 days ahead and 2 or 3 steps of yourself as it tries to sabotage yourself, all the better. Welcome to three-dimensional chess. It's loads of fun. I call it being fully alive or ADHD. Anyway, you drop into another veil, another world of humanity from the alpha state when you slow down even further. So, within the lineage inherited from the Northern Lipan's grandfather Stalking Wolf, through Tom Brown Jr. and his mentorship, the way I learned it was the world of the living dead, the world of the spirit that moves through all things, and then the world of spirit. And I was told it had no context or anchor in time or space, which sounds kind of woo-woo. But if you compare it to the theta state, and by the way, there are alphabet agencies who actively train in this. And you will never see the movie Men Who Stare at Goats. I met some of the participants of that project. They came through the awareness classes here and they lit right up. They knew exactly what I was referring to. And that's what got me on the journey of marrying up the modern scientific research with the ancient wisdom and the storyline, not to try to pull one's sacredness out or to water down and make junk science out of. They're two different belief systems saying the same thing. One is steeped in thousands of years of dirt time, of hard firsthand experience, knowledge, and know-how. And the other one has all of the funding and modern technology, and they came up with the same conclusion. I love tracking this universe, and I know none of us know what we're doing, but little kind of coincidences like that, what do they say? Correlation doesn't equal causation, nor does self-doubt. So maybe I'm delusional, but I love the outcome. I love what's being produced by my delusion. I love my life every day. I love my children, the children who know who they are and aren't lost or searching for themselves, no matter how much chaos they bring to the world. They also bring joy and inspiration, and their friends love them for who they are and admire them, and they do the same with their friends. That's the wealth of it. And maybe that's my wealth of it and not yours. All good. All good. But these tools are responsible for delivering and tangible daily. So I'm going to share them. And you can modify them any way you want. Make them work for yourself. Maybe put them on the shelf and never use them. Who knows? You could just pass them on when you see something that might work. As a suggestion, of course. Okay, so theta. You're not only peaked creativity-wise, but you begin to sense things outside of your limits of your sensory perception. Isolation rooms have been used for this, so remote viewing, things like that. Insight. We call it inner vision here because insight is accurate, actually. If you're going to go into your most primal core, to your brainstem, right? So you're going to bypass your limbic system, which is great for emotional communication, but it can be a little loud and chattery in there. There's so much stimulation that invokes emotional response. You know, the click of this heater could make me annoyed. Or if you were a child and you had an association with the smell of diesel, it can bring you back to the mood and circumstances and actually change your mood just because you spelled diesel and it's linked to a childhood memory. So there's a lot of static in there. You want to go as deep as you possibly can to your brainstem and cerebellum, where you have that genetic encoding. But it's also a blunt force instrument. So getting all of them online by starting from the center, the core, and then working your way outward as well as inward simultaneously, that's theta. Now we can sense when something is amiss. It may be in California while you're in Washington State, or it might be in Hawaii while you're in Alaska. It might be the twin thing. Everyone has stories about twins who one of them gets injured and the other one feels it, or that they dress alike, have the same type of job, married the same type of woman, maybe even the same name and birthday. There's so much of that harmonic occurring that it's hard to ignore. Yet we do. We have a place to be and a time to get there, so we get distracted. You have to be fully present. Any thoughts in your head will take you out of alpha, sure, but certainly theta, the world of spirit. Then there's delta, and we'll just call it the void, which is, it used to be deep, deemless, it used to be deep, deemless, deemless. I'm losing my mind and coming to my senses. It used to be deep, dreamless sleep. But as technology progressed, it has been redefined, or the definition has been expanded. Now it's deep sleep with repair, complex problem solving, an unawareness of the physical realm, of the physical body, and deep unconsciousness. And beyond this podcast, or a responsibility to the skill set, I will tell you that there are bands that divide that even further in the traditions as well. But we're going to just keep our feet grounded because we're here and doing work here. And the only thing that I feel comfortable sharing on this medium is that which we can measure tangibly. Now, there will be side effects, and I'm going to ask you to consider some of them as diagnostic of things. But I'm not going to interpret anything for you. I'm just going to say, hey, these are tools that are used for interpretation. Can't wait to hear if you want to share what you make of that profound experience that you just shared with your all-in body language and eyes wide open and expressive language and moving faster than thought as you tried to relive it, whether it was a dream or a car accident or a coincidence you couldn't explain or that sacred fishing trip with grandpa. There's communication alignments when your primal self, that middle earth self of your limbic system, and that higher level thinking self are all in the right place at the right time, being fulfilled in a manner where you're acting and exchanging energy in a dynamic landscape. And it could be volunteering for a baseball game or painting with your neighbor to get the fence done, helping your kid with homework, or at the end of the day at work, you realize it was an amazing day and you're in your car singing out loud. We do it anyway. It doesn't need funny hats, stained glass windows, kneel sit stands, old songs, and old language. It needs relevance and an emotional investment. So, there's your beginner's guide to the galaxy. The land of the living dead is the beta mindset where you're most active in your head. Worrying is praying for what you don't want. If you're filled with equations about solutions and you don't have time for that, you're in beta. Subconscious is a bridge to that other world. It also marries up with sensory motor rhythm, 13, 15 hertz per second. And what you experience is being in the zone, being very creative, in the flow. Things just seem to fall into place. Yeah, because you've matched the harmonic of the landscape. Your energy is moving in synchronicity with the energies flowing through that landscape. It's not a situational awareness. It's an awareness of the situation around you all the time in infinite directions. And you can't put it in your brain. See, that's why it only works when you turn your brain off. When I say your brain, your higher level thinking. Lose your mind and come to your senses. You can take your mind out when you need to solve a problem, but you're not always problem solving. That would indicate that you think life is a problem. And that goes back to your initial survival attitude. So if you're comfortable with it, fine, but otherwise fix that. Okay. And then, of course, delta is deep, dreamless sleep. Ish. At least they're recognizing now that there's complex problem solving going on. And while there's a physical unawareness, there's this deep unconsciousness that can't be measured yet. But what about that gamma thing? The gamma thing vibrates higher than beta, 32 to 100 hertz. That's crazy. Or 40, which is funny. So gamma is zooming. You must be having a heart attack. You must be completely debilitated, right? Wrong. Gamma is referred to as ADHD. It's learning, it's cognitive processing, it's problem-solving tasks, mental sharpness, high brain activity, and organizing the brain. Of course, what's missing is focusing on a single point outside of the landscape, outside of the internal landscape where all of this is going on. It's a carnival. It's an overwhelming carnival with all kinds of lights and people talking and cotton candy and smells of onions and sausage and the roar of the tractor pull or the moo of the cows and the smell of the manure and it's all of that out there because all of the stuff is on in here. That's not a curse unless it's in the institution. It's like putting a porcupine in an otter slide competition with the otters. It's not the right tool for the right job. Institutionalization doesn't stick well with the ADHD crowd. And the folks who have this gift are diverse. But often, this is when I say tendency, 80% of the time or more, often they are considered the class clown or the problem child or the anomaly. But if they dial it in and line up the expectations of the institution in a way that doesn't crush their souls, they can become incredibly popular and effective motivators, leaders in their early stages. And then like a rocket, they're going to take off. They're the few anomalies who know who they are, love what they do, and have wealth on all of those levels. I would suggest, and I'm biased, we all have that ability and that you can manifest it. And then if you're wired to not believe that, I'm sorry for not being able to create a harmonic that inspires you to something that I love. But then I would ask, inspire yourself into the fullness of something you love. You deserve it. You're here. Nature is very efficient. The dinosaurs kind of lost their context and blipped out. The dodo. There's all kinds of examples. Our tailbones shrinking into oblivion because we don't need them anymore. Beyond your genetics, you're only two things: the environment you immerse yourself in and what you choose to focus on in that environment. So we'll start with that map. And that within any environment, you can choose to be in flight or fight sustained, which is important. You know, you got to get the trash to the curb before the garbage man gets here, and the bills are due for this. And yeah, take it out when you need it, but then put it away. If you need a ceremony like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, where he took off his work clothes and put on his cardigan and kicked off his work shoes and put on his loafers, singing a song as he entered through the threshold from one world to the next. One of my elders, Grandfather Ray, simply says, you know, if you're working all day with those cows and you're done, you close that barn door and you leave them in that barn. You don't bring them home. You don't worry about them. They'll be there in the morning. The cows will be in the barn in the morning when you get there. It's really about managing your internal landscape, not compartmentalizing. There's a big difference. Compartmentalizing involves severing and some degree of denial. It's more like jiu-jitsu. You're flowing, you're looking at it through systems, right? You're looking at it as systems, and you're allowing energy in some systems areas, denying energy in other systems areas. And the idea is maintain your own sacred fire towards health. And what does that mean for you? What does that mean for you? Health. Have you even considered where you're heading? That's your waypoint, your ecological ideal. What does healthy and happy mean to you? And if it's Candyland, 8-year-old puppy love, it's going to be rainbows and unicorns and nobody ever goes hungry or sad. Well, that's a sign of unhealthiness. How about balance in all things? Flow. Yeah, there's going to be some blockages, but enough that it helps round out the edges and gives us experiences. Balance, flow, and bounty. I'm not saying an overwhelming cascade of Skittles every time you open the door, but perhaps you invest earnestly your calories with discernment and you get rewarded for the wise choices. And the choices that didn't turn out so well are still teachers, lessons, mentors, and you know the expense of it. So you take notes, you pay rapt attention to what it has to teach you, not how horrible it is. We already know that part. But as a mature, see through the target into that reward you're earning for walking through it, that's what you're going to come out with. But you have to be disciplined enough to maintain focus on the inevitable inherent gifts for walking through the valley of death, so to speak, whether it's working in a job you don't like until you can afford to lateral shift or pay off that debt, or, you know, it's going to change your behaviors so that you don't have to get in that situation again. That's real learning. The stuff in the institution is rote memorization and command and control, really. The bell rings, you move to another place. You got to study for the test on Friday. Nobody remembers what was on the test last Friday. Why do we need this? To do it next year. And it's not as meaningful as it might be. Wouldn't it be cool if all 7th and 8th graders to learn geometry built the pitch of a roof? Then they'd have a life skill and understand how to do the angle math. They would learn the Pythagorean theorem, and they would learn how angles are complementing each other to 180 degrees, and that the pitch of that roof can be determined before you make the cut, and the angle of the cut is going to reflect the pitch because, and suddenly it makes sense, and they could build a roof. They understand math and an application for it, and then they value both. But that's not what's happening right now. And that's okay. That just makes us stronger. See what I did there? That was real-time jujitsuing, all of that skill from the tools. And then people say that, man, you're really tough. No, it's not about tough. It's actually about play. It's about a chess game that is always interesting and always pertains and can suck. But that's because you got the move wrong and you just adjust it until you can't do that anymore, which then you have bigger problems. Or maybe you don't. Maybe you have new understandings and a new realm to explore, unshackled by this mortal coil. Okay. So there it is in a nutshell. We've got the map. We're going to use the map, but the map isn't any good until you help yourself to define where you want to go. And I'm not talking little picture, I want to try body control. More like your purpose for being, your ecological ideal, the gifts that you inherently have from genetics and life and interests and practice. And then defining what you bring to your people that brings joy in your heart that you can do well. And how does that align with what you're doing now? And then start developing that merge between the life you're living and the parallel universe of your ultimate self living that ultimate, still challenging life. I'm not trying to embed challenge. Challenge comes, and if you don't script it into your story, it can knock on your butt, and then you get caught in a hydraulic for anybody who whitewater paddles, and it spins you incessantly. If you're lucky, you get kicked out before you have a heart attack or drown. But those are self-imposed. If you're not prepared, that's a choice. I just want to prepare you. Challenge comes. And then how do we turn that challenge into gift? Because we can, and we do. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Dear Grandchildren, A Tracker's Tale. If today's journey resonates with you, I invite you to share it with others who long for a deeper connection to nature and themselves. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts for bonus episodes, exclusive question and answer sessions, and more tales from the wild. Your support through subscriptions, feedback, or simply spreading word keeps this flame of ancestral wisdom alive. And if you're ready to take the next step, contact the Central School at primitiveskills.com or email staff@primitiveskills.com to learn all about our workshops, experiences, lectures, expeditions, and how we can bring these teachings directly to you. Until next time, may your trails be clear and your heart full. Keep exploring and keep the fire burning.